Alright guys, TouchGrub here back again today, and yesterday the CDL announced version 1.5 of the rule set. I've been talking for quite a while now that I was expecting the CDL to come up with an updated rule set, because we've had a few rule sets now, like 1.1, 1.2, etc. Now we're at 1.5, and quite a few things have changed we'll go through. The entertaining thing really was that they came out with a rule set that the pros were not expecting. The pros, I'm sure, had been in communication with Activision and the guys at the CDL that come up with this rule set and decided, look, there's certain maps, there's certain things that we don't want to be in the game as a, a whole community consensus. We don't want to be playing with these things, we don't want to be playing on these maps, especially the maps comparison, because a lot of individual teams have started not scrimming on certain maps because they were under the assumption that they were going to be removed from the competitive play, given that the league starts just next week on January the 24th in Minnesota. It's been a weird last few months, really, given that, it's been like 3 months since anything has really happened, even since the game has come out. Still, quite a lot has seemed to have happened, but we're really closing in now on the start of the league. The entertaining thing here is, though, that the guys who came up with the rule set change, the CDL, whoever exactly is behind it, they come straight out and mess things up. Like, they announced a rule set which was not exactly what was expected. A lot of the maps were completely different what they removed from the game than was intending to be removed. So, pretty remarkable stuff. Go on to that in a couple of minutes' time here. Firstly, wanted to go through this article from Adam Fitch talking about the Subliners branding. It's branding that a lot of people kind of were not necessarily on the right side of. I myself, I'm in an interesting spot with it, because I know Adam Fitch, a really popular esports journalist, especially around the field of Call of Duty. He talked from the start how he really liked the Subliners branding. I was definitely on the fence, as I'm sure a lot of people are. It's kind of grown on me over time though, so I thought this article was quite interesting to go through. And it really shows that the guys behind the New York Subliners at least have an idea of the legacy and the history of Call of Duty. So, Esports Insider Adam Fitch, what is it about esports that Sterling Venture Capital found that made it worth investing such a big way? When we launched our fund, we saw gaming and esports as a particularly interesting segment for us to get involved in, partly because it was trending towards the sports angle, and we have a deep relationship with that. Investors in our funds are principal owners of the New York Mets, of course, which you've heard about. With this localization happening, and despite New York being the largest media market, no one was building esports there. When Overwatch League and then later Call of Duty was franchised with location in mind or localization, we saw an opportunity to bring gaming and esports to New York. Our mission is building up the community in New York. So what made you decide to invest in the COD League? So some pretty interesting insight, I think, here. We're already partnered with Blizzard on the Overwatch League. We care deeply about the New York market. And, they have the New York Excelsior in the Overwatch League. So, of course, it makes sense. This is the bit which kind of impressed me, right? Where the Call of Duty World League was somewhat born out of New York with Mike Sepso and Sundance Giovanni. Names that someone in, that's been around esports and MLG for a long time would know these names as key features, key figures in the whole MLG ecosystem that we've had for many a year. Pretty impressive for someone related in this sense to have that sort of depth of knowledge. Maybe it's not impressive. It's knowledge that you would expect these people to have if they've followed the scene for a bit of time. But it's also something which I guarantee a lot of the teams really know about the legacy and the history, especially some of the investor guys up at the venture capital organizations. So this is more about the branding. The leaked branding the branding was leaked prior to the official announcement. How did you take it? Excited the community were, whatever. So yeah, we launched New York Excelsior. Just thought I'd mention this. Just kind of the comparison to the Overwatch League. And then the last thing, really, can you give us some insight into the branding process? I thought this was kind of interesting, especially if you guys are from the New York. So the Subliners, which is really a name that confused me. I don't even really know how to pronounce it at first, but of course it is talking about the subway, I guess. The grit and chaos of the underground. Like our city, our team is built from the ground up to be a movement that challenges the status quo. In short, when you think about Call of Duty and what it represents, we're trying to mimic SEAL Team 6 coming out the water with their guns lined up with lasers, coming out the underground with a line of sight. Pretty interesting. Inspired by the razzle dazzle camouflage and warships. So honestly, it's kind of grown on me. The Excelsior logo is very similar to what you see at the Subliners logo, and to some degree it's grown on me. I'd be intrigued to hear what your thoughts are down in the comment section below. But yeah, pretty impressed overall with at least the comparison and how close it seems that some of the New York guys are to the previous factors of Call of Duty. And of course, they're using Adam Apicella and the esports engine that he set up as a consequence of the MLG guys kind of disbanding to run the upcoming season's league, which definitely a good sign for those of you who are attending the New York event. Here we go then. So Intel Call of Duty said quite a while ago, based on professional feedback he'd heard behind the scenes, Ramaz Adar, Marklov, Hardpoint, Cave S&D, Hackney S&D were the 4 maps rumoured to be out of the rotation.
And as Mad Cat said here, 3 maps supposedly taken out. You know, apparently another one was thrown in the mix. A lot of pros stopped even scrimming these maps and playing them on a professional level when they're practicing, because they didn't expect them to be in the full game, because I guess they're in communication with the league. And Clayster has said that the communication with Activision is pretty good. The communication with Infinity Ward and the guys over there, not so much, right? So this is what Intel Call of Duty comes out and says. It comes true a few days later, but not in the way we expected. So this is a tweet yesterday. In case you missed it, these were the maps that pros thought were being removed. Rumor is they made a mistake. So this is what they come out and said. Unfortunately, Intel Call of Duty made this tweet. Crone over there. Of course, I'll leave those links down in the description box below. But this is effectively a rip from the initial post that they made. So what they said was, Hardpoint removing Ramaza, Search and Destroy removing Azir Cave and Hackney Yard as intended, Domination removing St. Petrograd. So basically, they got this completely wrong. The removal was not meant to be Ramaza. As you can see by this initial tweet, it was meant to be Arklov, and then Ramaza Domination was the one that was meant to be removed, which honestly boggles the mind. How can you not check this with the pros? How can you not have this written down? How can you have so much confidence, whoever decided to write this up, that you're bang on the money and your communication with the professionals has been correct, to the point where you remove maps from the map pool and leave the other ones, which were not even intentional. St. Petrograd wasn't even in the conversation to be removed. It was Ramaza that was meant to be removed due to the awful, the doors and everything around that map. And Hardpoint Arklov Peak is just way too big to be played competitive, to be honest. I don't mind those changes on the whole. In terms of a change, when we look at the actual official changes in a second, I just find it mind-blowing how they can make a mistake like this to this degree, and then just come out a few minutes later and be like, oh, actually, yeah, we meant this map and this map. I'm like, how do you not get this right first time, especially when you're such a massive company and you're trying to promote the CDL as a very verifiable and reputable league? Things like this don't exactly help. So yeah, here we go. So Theory and Karma had some comments on it. Is the CDL trolling? Why is player input always ignored? Everyone's been screwing without Arklov, Hardpoint and Ramaza, and they take out Ramaza, Hardpoint and St. Petro Dom instead. Karma's like, it has to be wrong. Pac-Man goes, it is. And not too long later, they do correct themselves and remove Arklov Peak. The S&D maps are removed as planned, and then the Ramaza Domination as well. Intrigued what your thoughts are on this down in the comment section below. Of course, we're not stuck with the best maps this year. It's not the best situation we find ourselves in. In terms of the maps in the game, Gunrunner is probably the best. The fact that we're having to play Azir Cave Hardpoint with the way the spawns are on that map is quite depressing. Hackney Yard is okay, but for Search and Destroy it did play awfully, and Azir Cave is not a good map for Search and Destroy at all. I don't mind Arklov Peak staying. Gunrunner's decent. St. Petrograd's pretty decent for Search and Destroy, actually. Piccadilly's an interesting one that's kind of up and down. Ramaza stays for that, and it's gone for Domination. Of course, only 3 maps in Domination makes sense, given it's only 1 mode out of the series, which is typically how it's been in game modes, which only have game modes that only have 1 mode, 1 map played, I guess, throughout the series. They tend to have 3 maps played on them. Especially, we've seen that in a few games now where the maps won't necessarily be so good, something like a World War II or something like that. So yeah, Ramaza's gone. Intrigued to hear your thoughts down below. There's some other things that have changed here as well to go through. So restricted weapons, the FAL is gone from the primary weapon category. Marksman rifles, they're all gone. Attachments, the laser sights are gone, which is really interesting. I guess the pros had a discussion that these were like too OP, and that the 1 milliwatt laser provided increased hipfire spread, but with no downside. 5 milliwatt laser are apparently also too strong. Some perks have gone as well. Some perks, perk 1 and perk 2 have disappeared. And yeah, all modes. Mounting set to disabled, which is really cool to see, actually. Like, I guess it's been a gentleman's agreement, I guess you could say. The players aren't going to do that, but they've come out and said, look, this is officially banned. Battle chat is off, and announcer dialogue set to enable. Pretty interesting. Weapon ping on compass enabled. So that, of course, is something that makes complete sense for competitive play. So the maps and modes list here in full. I'll leave this, of course, links down below if you guys would like to check it out in more detail. Just a couple of things to go over then before we finish. Why exactly was the FAL banned is another question. A lot of people are saying that if you put burst on or FMJ, it's an absolute joke. So this is what Doug says here on Twitter. Be intrigued to hear any of your guys' input down in the comment section below as well, whether you guys use the FAL much, because I can't say I've touched Modern Warfare in a fair bit of time. And this is what Clayster says. We know that Clayster has always been this guy to go super hard on finding out all the, not necessarily the glitches, but all the things in the game that can potentially be exploited and used to the best of one's ability. It's quite common that professionals, they'll get into the habit of, look, the M4's the best gun, the MP5's the best SMG, that's all we're going to use. Clayster has always been the guy that will look out for some wacky class setups and will try different things and try and make it work, like an MX Garand or whatever the case may be. The M1 Garand, I think, actually in World War II, for example, that Clayster kind of popularized. Also the dual-wield pistols, I think, that Ferro kind of used, and I think Clayster used them as well, and there was a whole drama about Ferro using them against Clayster, even though they were GA'd. Clay wasn't very happy about it, but Clay had kind of done something similar to them at a previous event. It was an interesting turn of events, but Clayster has always kind of been this guy. Clearly, he had some sort of fascination, really, or he found the FAL to be a pretty damn good gun. Why is the FAL banned? Wasn't that in GA? And Clayster clearly not too happy with it. So intriguing. The M4 has clearly been the main assault rifle. It's an interesting time we find ourselves in, really, with all the attachment variety you can have on the gun. The fact that you can put so many different attachments on it. You can effectively make the M4 whatever range you need it to do. If you need it to be a long range AR, you just stack the attachments on to make it be so. You don't really need a longer range AR class or something like that, right? You can effectively use your M4, which is the most versatile gun, for anything you want it to be. Clearly, Clayster thinks the FAL could have a good place, but apparently the other pros, I imagine, because the Dallas Empire were a pretty good team, maybe they were scrimming against Dallas Empire quite a lot. Some of the other teams were. Clayster pulled out the FAL just to practice it. A lot of the other teams were like, yeah, no, we're not playing with this. Clayster can go away in I'm sure much nicer terms. So yeah, intriguing to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. What do you think about this? First of all, I'm generally baffled at this whole situation where they remove the wrong maps. I guess you could just say it's a simple mistake, whatever. But clearly, like, when there is, apparently, Clayster said, right, they have decent communication with Activision. It's just with Infinity Ward that the next steps need to be taken. The fact that you're going to come out and say, Ruleset 1.5, this is the final one before the league begins, this is what you're looking at, and they haven't even, Search and Destroy was even spelt wrong as well. Like, it honestly, it's just amateur hour. Is it even spelt wrong still here? Search and Destroy. Okay, they fixed it on this one, but still, it just like even grammar and stuff like that frustrates me when you're a $300 million league over all the teams that are invested. Maybe that's just me though. Like, if you guys enjoyed, I'd greatly appreciate it. Subscribe if you're new as always. Thanks for watching. I will see you next time.